A while back, someone asked me if I could do my versus thing using living people, which is, it's difficult to do sometimes. You know, everyone would love to see, you know, what would happen if Jet Li were to face Bruce Lee, both in their primes. And I tell you, it would just be a blur. It would be a blur of movement that we'd have to record and then cut to like 1/3 speed to figure out what was going on. Now, people who have actually done professional fighting, it's easier because you normally actually have an actual like record. You can go back, you can look at some of their matches, and they already have like their most vital stats. So this is my first shot at this. If I do a horrible job, or you don't like some of the things, comment section, just, you know, blast away. Jason David Frank. Yes, Tommy the Green Ranger. Also the White Ranger. And the Red Ranger. It's also the Black Ranger. Shortly after Phil CM Punk Brooks decided he was going to join UFC, Dana White mentioned he was going to take on somebody with a very small record. Because CM Punk versus someone who's like, you know, 3-0, or 4-0, 5-0, it makes it a much more difficult fight. Because then you get a guy who's got a lot more experience than on CM Punk. So Jason David Frank, with a professional record of 1-0. If you include amateur, he's 5-0. Professional 1-0 record. Said, hey, I would take him on. Bases a discussion that happened at one of the Wizard Worlds because they were doing the tour together. Yes, as I did watch the interview and I read it, where CM Punk was like, he was the Green Ranger, right? And Jason was like, dude, we met, we talked at a convention. You kind of know who I am. I don't know if that was Jason David Frank thinking that, you know, meeting him was like a high point in CM Punk's time, or if it was one of those things like they met, they talked, they hit it off, and then that was it. So, he challenged him. This is my first time doing human living combatants in a specific sport. If this comes off somewhat well, I can potentially use this for, yes, we could do Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano, or Ronda Rousey, Cyborg, or anybody who is, you know, I am going to kind of say that, you know, for weight, I do have that in there. CM Punk hasn't fully declared what weight he wants to fight at. You know, in wrestling, he was billed at like 218. He's mentioned maybe doing 185. You know, so there's some discrepancy there. What I'm using is record, age, height. Height gives you reach. But I think, why age? As you get older, you're going to be a little bit slower. So I look at age. You know, if you're older, it's going to be a detriment. Weight. This one again, the bigger you are, the slightly slower you are, but you're also stronger. Striking. What sort of actual training do you have? Do you have, you know, belts? Have you created your own martial arts style? Do you have like a professional level of training? Grapple and clinch. I combine the two of them because they're kind of hard to separate. Again, this is going to be, have you won a tournament? Do you have belts? Do you have a significant amount of training in this area? And then finally, submissions. And this again comes down to what sort of training do you actually have? We'll get right into this. Record. CM Punk 0-0. Jason David Frank 1-0. 5-0, depending on how you want to look at it. All of them are first round stops. They were also 4 years ago at the time of this video. They were like pretty much, I want to say they're like almost all like 2010 sort of fights. So Jason David Frank does have a definite advantage when it comes to fight experience. Age. Jason David Frank 41 at time of this video. CM Punk 36. CM Punk is definitely a little bit younger. So you're going to see a little bit more spryness in him. Yeah, his body's taken a tremendous beating over the about 18 years of professional wrestling, but he's had enough time to heal up, and he has a lot of money, so it's not like he's going to really be hurting when it comes to any sort of, you know, physical ailments given his age. Height. Jason 5'11". CM Punk 6'2". That's going to be a slight advantage when it comes to reach. Weight. Jason David Frank is currently billed at 214. CM Punk, while wrestling, was billed at 218. Mentioned he might do 185. It's kind of like, okay, so he's probably going to be a little bit faster. We'll say they're going to be about the exact same weight. CM Punk is probably going to be maybe just a tad bit faster. If anything, because he's going to really try to come in this really nice and lean. So he's going to be a little bit faster. Jason David Frank, if you've seen him, pretty jacked. CM Punk, during wrestling, he was kind of pudgy. I mean, he was no George St. Pierre. He was not super cut. So you got a guy who's going to be definitely stronger versus a guy who might be a little bit faster. And with this one, I'll probably give the edge to Jason David Frank. I'm going to assume this fight they're going to face at the 214 to 218 sort of range. So they're going to be fighting. I picture fighting more like that. This is like the heavyweight sort of thing. If we do have this fight happen and JDF has to drop 30 pounds, then it goes to Punk. So from this point, you can look at if it's a heavyweight fight or if it's close to the 214 weight. Jason David Frank fights at it currently. He has an edge. CM Punk does not. If you want to look at this fight as a lightweight, Jason David Frank loses the edge, and then CM Punk gets it. So right now you're either 2-2 or CM Punk has an edge. Now we come down to the actual striking. CM Punk is training Kempo. To my knowledge, he doesn't have a true legitimate. He doesn't have an actual recognized belt. He might have one of the very earlier on ones. Jason David Frank's 7th degree black belt in karate. He's created his own martial arts form. So he definitely has an advantage when it comes to striking. Clinch and the grapple. They both do have a background in Muay Thai. In 2006, Jason David Frank actually won a Muay Thai tournament. Master Toddy. So, even though it was 8 years ago, at the time of this video, he has actually competed in a Muay Thai tournament. So, I mean, his skill level is better than that, and someone who's done a decent amount of sparring. Now, submissions. Jason David Frank, purple belt. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Not a really awesome belt. I think that's about two years of practice, roughly. CM Punk, the best current estimate, since he doesn't have an officially recognized belt as of the time of this video, is he's probably a blue belt. Purple is higher than blue. So if these two guys were to fight at an earlier part in this year, you know, if CM Punk were to put in a tremendous amount of training before he were to take him on, you know, this fight becomes a lot more competitive. I do picture, if they were to fight sometime like the first half of the year, Jason David Frank is going to do a pretty good job on CM Punk if they're in the heavyweights. If he has to drop 30 pounds, now this becomes a little more competitive because CM Punk will be at that weight and will have less true experience, but will probably feel a little bit better, where Jason David Frank will not have that experience at that weight. So I have the experience of being in a fight, but not the way his body will react, not the way his strength will be different, not the way his speed will be different. So there'll be enough slight variation to make this fight a little more competitive. And plus, if CM Punk can get a tremendous amount of training, he'll close that gap. But I still think Jason David Frank just has a much better background when it comes to actual training. And he's got a couple of fights under his belt, so he actually has been hit. He knows how to react to it. You know, so at a lightweight, we'll say like August-ish. You know, so CM Punk will not have like 8 good solid months of training. It's gonna be a pretty competitive fight. Because CM Punk will definitely he'll be a little bit younger. If they do it at a lightweight, you know, if they both don't have true experience at that fighting level, just how their bodies are going to react, how they're going to move. You know, like I said, speed, flexibility, strength. You know, those two things would definitely work in a CM Punk's favor. He's going to be a little bit younger. You know, they both don't have experience at that fighting weight, so it's going to kind of, you know, balance out that amount of experience they've got. Frank will still have the definite edge. You know, Punk will have a little bit more of a reach. What about who's gonna be hungry? I think they're both. You know, if this is JDF's first time in the UFC and it's gonna be a good money match, yeah, he's gonna bring it, and CM Punk's gonna bring it. They're gonna bring it at a level that's gonna be just massive. CM Punk, however, I think would have somewhat of an advantage, being that he's been in these sort of really high-profile situations. So I think if they were to do lightweight, after a couple of months, I think CM Punk makes his fight competitive. Because he wanted the butterflies in his stomach. You know, they'll be about the same when it comes to how they're actually going to move, given their body sizes. So he'll have those advantages, but I do think Jason David Frank has a much more legitimate background when it comes to actual physical contests of this nature. So if they were to face like closer to closer to now, at a heavyweight range, I think Frank steamrolls him. If CM Punk definitely gets a decent amount of training in, I do think this fight becomes more competitive. This happens like, we'll say, around like August. It becomes a much more competitive fight, especially if it's at a lightweight. But I still think Jason David Frank, just given the fact that he actually has more experience, and he has a much, he's probably striking, but he has more submission work than CM Punk currently has, or would be able to have at that point in time. Because I'm pretty sure that Jason David Frank would also wrap up his training schedule. So I think if they're right here when it comes to experience, CM Punk will get a little bit closer. Jason Frank might edge out a little bit. So if they were to face first quarter of the year, Jason David Frank. If we were to fight closer to the third quarter, becomes more competitive, but I still go Jason David Frank.